Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's workshop. A bit of a different workshop from what we normally do. If you're joining us for the very first time, my name's James Whitcomb, and I'm the candidate coach. And today we're going to be taking plenty of questions from you out there in the audience. So we've and to ask any questions. What we're going to do today, we're going to be taking your questions, and you can pop them in live wherever you're watching. You can pop questions in if you're watching us on our LinkedIn channel. You can pop in questions if you're watching us on one of our partner sites like Medibank, Optus, AFCA, so on and so forth. I've got my eyes on the chats here. We've also had about a dozen questions that have been emailed in over the last week. And again, we'll read these questions out. We won't be saying who sent them in, but this is your opportunity. You can ask your questions anonymously. I don't think you can actually on LinkedIn, but if you're on any of our other platforms, you can ask a question, and we'll just go through these questions today until we've done them all. So let's just firstly, I guess, start off a little bit about my background. So I'm a recruiter. I'm a director at an agency called Smart Recruitment. And I've been at Smart for almost 20 years. Can you believe it? Almost 20 years in recruitment. Interviewed thousands, if not tens of thousands of people in that time. Placed well over 1,000 people into work with 500 different companies. I spend most of my time now coaching job seekers on resume, cover letters, interview techniques, communication styles, LinkedIn, basically how to overcome the obstacle. How you can overcome the obstacle that's between you and getting your next job. That's what we spend a lot of our time doing. And we run this workshop every week. It's a different topic every week. And this week, we're just calling it a live Q&A. So this is your opportunity. Again, if you've got a burning question, doesn't even have to be burning. Pop it in the chat wherever you're watching us live at the moment. And if you get it in there in time, I will answer it as we go. So let's dive in. I've got a long list of questions here that people have sent me. I'm just going to read them out exactly the way they were written. We're not going to sugarcoat anything here because I think that's a really important part of the recruitment process for you as a job seeker is making sure that the questions that you ask get read out and not have the edges cut off them. So question number one, I'm 58 years old and can't get a job. Why are recruiters so ageist? That's a hard question, isn't it? I can really relate to how you're feeling, to the person that wrote this in, because I do a lot of my coaching with people who are sort of over 55 and are struggling, to get their next job. It's a particularly tough time for many people who have often had no trouble at getting a job or might have been very happily employed for a large part of their career. Sometimes people have taken a redundancy and received a nice pay check with it and thought, I'll take 6 months off and then I'll just, find my way back into the workforce. And it doesn't always happen that easily. So back to the question, I'm 58 years old and can't get a job. Why are recruiters so ageist? The first thing I'm going to say is that there are some recruiters, there are some hiring managers that are ageist. Some of them are deliberately ageist, and that's actually illegal. Whether or not they tell you they're ageist, they probably won't. But we also all have unconscious bias. And so everybody makes an assumption based on the other person's age. Even you watching this LinkedIn training session today, you yourself will make an assumption of somebody's suitability based on age. You just can't help it. It's in your nature. There's nothing you can do to stop that. However, in my experience, and this is just my experience, candidates who are probably sort of over the age of 55, they blame their age as being the only reason why they're unsuccessful in their job hunt. They say, I've been looking for work for 2 months. I've been looking for work for 3 months. I can't get a job. It's because everybody's ageist. Now, what I find is when I spend some time with these job seekers and we work on all the parts of their application, it often isn't anything to do with a recruiter or a business owner being ageist. It's got everything to actually do with the fact that they're not applying for work in the right way. So what I mean by that is their resume isn't an achievements-based resume. Their cover letter is not tailored for every job. And when they are getting interviews, their interviewing technique is poor. When we get to this age in our career, into our 50s and 60s, a lot of people think that they've had a good career, so they don't necessarily need to work really hard at resume, cover letter, and interview preparation. Nothing could be further from the truth. You've got to apply for each job and put in a huge amount of effort for each job. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. And so for most people who say, I can't get a job because of my age, my response is, I don't think it's your age that's stopping you. I think it's the other parts of the way you're going about applying for work that is stopping you. So my answer to your question, why are recruiters so ageist? I don't think they are. A lot of the companies we recruit for, they want people with life experience. But if your application isn't in the top 5-10%, regardless of your age, you're not going to get a look in. Question number 2, should I have a photo on my resume? One friend says I shouldn't because I'll be discriminated against based on my looks. This is a really big question, really big question. We talk about this a lot in our resume writing. My philosophy with resume writing is that your resume should be a sales document. It's a marketing document. It should be promoting you to the person reading your resume. It should be making the person reading your resume think, I want to interview this person. I want to pick up the phone. So you've got to sell yourself on your resume, and you need to have an achievements-based resume. So my question back to whoever sent this in is, do you think that having a photo on your resume is going to help sell you? I can't really tell you the answer for that. I can't really tell you whether your photo is going to help sell you. You've got to make that decision yourself. A couple of things that I would make you aware of. If you are going to put a photo on your resume, it needs to be a corporate headshot. It needs to be a professional looking corporate headshot. This is very simple to do with even a reasonable photo. You can head to Canva. On Canva, you can remove the background. You can add in a corporate background. You can make the photo look really good. So a photo has to be a corporate looking photo. But as soon as you do put a photo on your resume, you are going to be judged on your appearance. You're judging me today on my appearance, whether you realize it or not. You're either consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously judging me based on my appearance. When I see a photo on a resume, I'm also doing the same. It's human nature. I can't help it. So you need to be aware of the fact that if you put a photo on your resume, you will be judged on how you look. So the decision is completely up to you. There's no right or wrong. There's positives and negatives to both. That's a great question. The next one I've been sent in. This is a good one. How can I best describe my weaknesses when looking for work? In a recent interview, I was asked what was I weakest at in my previous job. I didn't really know what to say. As recruiters, this question does get asked a lot. Tell me about your greatest weakness. And a lot of people will try to think up a clever answer, or they'll try to be a little bit funny here. The fact is, we all do have weaknesses, but for many of us, we do think we did quite well in our last job. How I would recommend you answer this question is literally to think, okay, what part of the job could I have done better at? So for me, for example, I used to love managing employees on a day-to-day basis, but I got to the point where I realized I actually wasn't that good at it. I needed some more assistance on it, but it was a really tough thing, and it took me a couple of years to realize that. But in realizing that I needed some assistance with managing employees, I learned that I could admit to my weakness, and then I could go out and address the weakness. So that's what you need to do with your answer for an interview. So you need to list a weakness. You do need to list something here, something that you would like to be better at in the workplace. But the key here is then to show what you are doing to address that weakness. So you might say, look, one of the weaknesses that I've got is, I really find it challenging when dealing with customers who are quite agitated. And in the past, I've not responded very well to that. However, I've started to A, B, or C. I've started to do training in this area. I've been reading books on conflict resolution. Mention the weakness and then show what you are doing to address the weakness. Everybody's got weaknesses. Most of us have got lots of them. The key here is to show that you can identify it and what you're doing to address it. Okay, next question that's been sent in this week is, can recruiters really tell if I use AI for my resume and cover letter? Well, yes and no. Yes, I can tell if you've used ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to write your cover letter. If you simply prompted it, write me a cover letter for this job ad, and drop the job ad in. I can often spot, maybe I probably can't spot them all, but I can often read a cover letter and go, that sounds very much like it's written by a large language model, partly because we're getting a lot of cover letters that sound the same. So if you are simply being, I call it lazy AI application. Lazy AI application don't work. But you might think, hey, this is great. I was able to send out 60 applications today because ChatGPT wrote the cover letter for everyone. Well, I think you are far better spending that whole amount of time just doing 1 or 2 applications and getting a better response. The best way to use AI is to actually pop the job advertisement into ChatGPT and say, can you give me some suggestions on writing the cover letter? Or get it to write the cover letter, but don't copy and paste it. Look at how it's written it and then rewrite those paragraphs. Or if you've got a lot of writing, one of the best ways to do is to train your own large language model on your communication style. Copying and pasting whatever ChatGPT gives you is terrible. But tweaking it, and again, this only takes a few minutes, tweaking it to make it sound like you and to be more authentic is clever, is smart, and I'd be encouraging you to use AI in that particular way. Okay, the next question that's been sent in this week is, where's my list of questions? Following on from that one, I've heard that recruiters don't read cover letters anymore. Should I bother writing them, as I really hate doing it? This is a really interesting question. Cover letters. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and every week there would be somebody saying, cover letters are finished. I don't read cover letters. And for that person, that's true. That one person that's written that, they do not read cover letters. But they do not speak for all recruiters. I have got recruiters that I've worked with in the past and in the present who absolutely love receiving a well-written cover letter. In fact, some of the recruiters I work with, they open the cover letter before they open the resume. So the hard thing for you, though, is you don't know the preference of the person who's receiving your application. The person who's receiving your application, you need to imagine, loves receiving cover letters. Because if you think, I won't bother, and they do love receiving cover letters, this counts very strongly against your application. So my advice to the job seekers that I work with is, unless you are told not to, always include a cover letter, but it needs to be a well-written cover letter. It needs to be tailored for the job. And I know that that takes a little bit more work, but if you watch our video on the 4 steps to creating an effective cover letter, you'll see that it actually doesn't require maybe perhaps as much work as you had previously thought. So the answer to me is yes, always submit a cover letter unless the job specifically says not to. Great question. Okay, another one's just come through. I have a criminal record after my partner was convicted of drug dealing and I served 3 months in prison. I'm too scared to apply for jobs because I don't want to be asked about it. What do I do? This is a great question. And I am fortunate enough that I have spent a lot of time working with people with a criminal record number, or what we call a CRN. Spent time in several prisons working with people who are about to be released from jail. And one of the things I know that all of the research shows is that the single thing that somebody who has come out of prison can do to limit their chances of reoffending is to find employment. So it is an absolutely vital link. The challenge is that most people who come out of prison are not told how they should address their criminal past. And I use the word past because it's in your past when it comes to employment. So a couple of things here. First of all, never ever lie. Never ever lie, because odds are already stacked against you. You've got a criminal record. If you're caught lying about it, that employer will never consider you. Many applications will ask, do you have a criminal record? When you're filling out the online form. You have to be honest here. You have to say yes. That beared in mind, that employer is actually only allowed to discriminate against hiring you for that position if your criminal record is relevant. So it depends on what your criminal record is. However, for most individuals, the issue comes when perhaps you're not asked to declare it in an online form, and you're going through the recruitment process. Maybe let's say you're going for a hospitality role in a small suburban cafe. They're not going to probably do a criminal background check. And you've almost got to the point of being offered the job and they haven't asked you. And you've potentially got this uneasy feeling in your stomach because you've got this skeleton in your closet with your criminal record number. What I would encourage you to do, and this takes a little bit of courage and it takes a little bit of practice, is to prepare a little bit of a short speech on your past. And again, that's the phrase I'd use. This is your past. And I wouldn't go into the interview and sit down and say, look, I need to let you know up front, I've got a criminal record. What we want to do here is that after an employer or a manager has built some rapport with us, after they've learned about the skills we can bring to the job, after they've started perhaps imagining you in the job, and you've built up all these ticks, tick, 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 tick. At the end of the interview, it's looking at the person in the eye and saying, before we finish, there is something I need to tell you. In my past, I committed a small crime, if it was small. I'm very ashamed of what I did, and I did go to prison, and so I have a criminal record. I want to let you know that this is in the past. I've been fully rehabilitated, and if you give me this opportunity of employment, it will change the rest of my life. I want to sit here today and guarantee you that I won't let you down, that I'll work really, really hard, and that you'll never regret hiring me. I know that this probably comes as a bit of a surprise, if not a shock, to hear that I've got a criminal past, but I want to be really, really honest with you, and I hope this doesn't count against me. Whew, what a great paragraph or sentence there. Now, you might not be able to deliver that well. I'm not expecting you to. I do a lot of work with job seekers with a criminal record, and so I've practiced that a little bit. But if you can deliver something along those lines, saying, hey, I need to be honest with you. I've got a past, and in my past, I committed a crime, but that's all in my past. If you give me a chance, I won't let you down. If you can look the person in the eye and say that, that means a lot. That really does count for something. Now, maybe if you go for 4 jobs, for 2 of them, they'll say, well, they don't call you back. But if you can then get a job based on those terms, wow, that's fantastic. What you probably don't want to do is get a job and they haven't asked you about your criminal record, because you're probably going to be nervous the whole time. And if they find out after 3 months that you do have a criminal record, even though they didn't ask you about it, they're probably going to feel like they can't trust you. So I know it's a really tricky one. That's my recommendation for how to go about it. Next question. Thank you. Keep typing them in LinkedIn or on the partner sites. They're coming through well. I want to change careers, James, but I have applied for at least 50 jobs and keep getting ignored. I feel like nobody even sees my application. I haven't had a single call back. What should I do? I am currently employed, but I want to change careers. Okay. Very common question. Very common question we get is how? How do I go about changing careers? First thing I'd recommend you do is on your Candidate Coach platform is jump on. We've got a 3-episode career change course there where you get guided through the process of how do I get from my current job into a job in a new career. Some very practical steps there. I will answer it this way. I want you to imagine that you're sitting in my seat, the seat of a recruiter, and you look at 100 to 200 resumes on most days. And I know at the moment, or not at the moment, for many years now, the job boards have made it really, really easy for you to be able to apply for a role with them. And so we can see on the back end that some candidates will apply for 30 jobs in 30 minutes. It's called easy apply. You can just click and apply, click and apply, click and apply. And so often we'll get hundreds of applications for one job. Now, if I'm recruiting somebody for a marketing role and they apply to the position they're currently working in accounting, and they haven't given any reason at all as to why they're applying for this job, then I'm going to assume that they're doing what most candidates do and just throwing their resume out at as many jobs as possible. So what you need to do if you are looking to change careers is you need to be very, very specific in your application that you want to change into that specific career that you are applying for the job in. You need to make sure in your cover letter that you very clearly state early on, I'm applying for this role and this is why. You don't want the recruiter to think it's an accident. In your cover letter, in your resume, you need to highlight the components of your previous roles that best show the work that you've done that is relevant to the job you're applying for now in terms of the career change. You need to remove any doubt in the mind of the person looking at your application that you want to change careers. If you don't do that, the recruiter will probably assume that you're just throwing your resumes at as many jobs as you possibly can and just seeing who calls you back. Remove that doubt. The final thing I would do is make a call. If there's contact details or a contact person, I'd be calling up and saying, hey, I wondered if I could just have 5 minutes of your time. I've applied for this role from a completely different industry, and I just wanted to let you know why. And then you can talk specifically to your passion for changing to that industry. Okay, that was a good question. What's our next one? Here we go. I only want work from home jobs, but they don't seem to pay as well. Some help here, please. Okay, I only want work from home jobs, but they don't pay as well. So it sounds like to me is, yes, you want to change work, you have a salary set in mind, and that salary is not available for work from home jobs. There's not much I can do to help you here with this one, other than to say, I think we need to change our perspective in terms of work from home. Work from home should not necessarily be seen as a right. It's not a right in every job. It's not a right in every profession. Teachers, medical professionals, for example, truck drivers, they can't work from home. I'm working from home right now. I see the benefits of it. I absolutely love it. But it's not a right for every single job. So you need to choose then what's more important to you. If working from home is more important, then maybe you do have to settle for a lower salary. And previously, in years gone by, when work from home first came in, people were saying they were very happy to select a lower salary to work from home. You've either got to choose what's more important to you. If you can earn more money by going into the office and that's more important to you, you're going to have to do it. Otherwise, you're going to have to settle at working for less when you work from home. Okay, looks like I've got one last question. Is it two? No, one last question here, and then we'll wrap up. So if anybody else has got a question, do pop it in now while I answer this last one. In your opinion, James, what's the single best way to get a recruiter's attention? Okay, I love this. I've got one very strong suggestion here on the single best way to get a recruiter's attention, and that is to pick up the phone and call them. Now, I know what most of you are thinking. You're probably thinking one of two things. James, I'm too scared to call up about a job. Or you're thinking, James, they never answer the phone. Let's address both of those. First of all, it is okay to be nervous about calling up about a job. But if you have everything laid out in front of you, your resume, your cover letter, the job you've applied for, and some questions that you want to ask written down, you are really well prepared. I've got a whole video on this called How to Make an Effective Call to a Recruiter About a Job. I recommend you watch it. Because, again, let me put you back into the seat of a recruiter. If I'm sitting here at my desk and I've got 200 resumes to read through and somebody calls me and I pick up the phone, I am now talking to that person, that one person out of 200. And if they sound good on the phone, I'm bringing up their resume as we're speaking. And I'm fast forwarding their application to a decision point. The decision point might be no, they're not successful, but at least they're giving their application far more airtime with me than the other 199. Your second concern there is how to actually get onto the recruiter. So what I would recommend doing is you call up, and the first time, if they don't answer, you leave a voicemail. If they don't call back, I would just keep on calling them a couple of times a day, but only ever leave one voicemail. You don't want to leave 10 voicemails because then you're coming across as stalking. Your aim is to catch them when they're sitting at their desk. Catch them when they're sitting there. And so if you call a few times a day, you're likely to get that. All right, it doesn't look like we've got any other questions for our live Q&A. So I want to thank everybody that jumped on today. A replay, this whole workshop will be available on our YouTube channel. So thanks very much for jumping on.